Antigua, Guatemala, a place I'm always going to remember for its volcanic views, its charismatic streets, its rich history, not to mention the first place I ever traveled with all three of my kids under the age of 3. Once upon a time, this was Guatemala's capital. Then an earthquake leveled it. The streets, the architecture, however, still carry the look and feel of the past. I've always envied old European cities and how walkable they are, built in a way where you can get from one end of the town to the other. There are only a few places in the Americas like that, and Antigua is one of them. This place is full of charm. And let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, let me show you this place. It's got the chandelier, the rustic bell. This place has all the vibes. It's a bit surprising that it happens to be a Taco Bell. This is the Taco Bell in Antigua, Guatemala. I've seen people hype up the one in Pacifica, California because of its ocean views. I'd put this one right up there with it. Built into the courtyards and alleyways of an ancient city, you still have a chance to order your familiar menu items off a touchscreen menu. There's a chalupa. You've got Saints, and you've got Wi-Fi. With several private party areas, foosball tables, and big screens, it's actually a pretty good spot for teams and groups to go celebrate. But definitely an unexpected lunch stop in Guatemala. Good morning. Hey, so it's actually my birthday today. 32 in Guatemala.
I don't think you remember, but you helped pick it out. There you go.
Thank you, Reese. All right, what did Reese get me? It was my first time my kid has got me a birthday gift. It's, oh, I see a butterfly. Oh, I like this book a lot. Now, you all know I love my kids, but on my birthday, an afternoon to myself kind of feels like a treat. We're gonna head to my favorite coffee shop in town, Café Fernando. So right now I'm in one of my favorite spots in all of Antigua, Café Fernando. This place is a coffee shop, but it's got this incredible courtyard and seating area. It's a great place to bring some work if you have some work to get done, or to come here and not work. Just bring a book, bring whatever you want to relax and enjoy some food and drink. Coffee, snacks, cool deal. One thing you've probably heard about Guatemala is they have incredible coffee. They ship it all over the world, but Antigua has some great cafes and coffee shops, so let me show you a few of my favorites. I've already talked up the courtyard and the coffee at Café Fernando, but seriously, this place is great. You come down this way, and here's our first stop. Rainbow Cafe has some serious world traveler vibes going on, and I love it. This mural-lined courtyard is a great spot to get work done, and they've got lots of food on their menu, so you can stay through your next meal. Artista de Café caught me by surprise. This place was sleek. It looked like it could be in a hipster neighborhood of San Diego or something. I wouldn't be surprised if some people are off-put by the way this sort of feels like the gentrification station, but it's hard to argue with how good their coffee is. This affogato, seriously good, and what a generous scoop of ice cream. Finally, if it's a good day out, I don't think you could do any better than Café Bohème. The rooftop terrace, perfect spot to sit and mellow out. Now, while I was enjoying tasting all these coffees, I suspected there might be a little bit more to the story of coffee in Guatemala. One that I wouldn't fully understand just from the inside of these cafes. I decided to go a little deeper. I think we're gonna visit some local growers, visit their coffee plantation, which is most likely also their home. Hopefully sample some of what they grow. We met with Angel, a local coffee farmer who would give us a tour of his farm.
¿Solo 3 hijos o más hijos?
Solamente
Muchos
3.
más. En Guatemala no hay límite.
Sí, claro.
Puedes tener un equipo de fútbol.
Para nosotros, límite.
Angel is a member of a co-op where he learns both coffee growing skills, sustainability, and coffee tourism.
Caficultura de San Miguel Escobar. My-
¿Quién es Rafael Zuleta?
Yo.
¿Yo?
Tengo dos
Ángel Rafael.
dos primeros nombres, Ángel Rafael.
Ah, claro.
Zuleta Martínez. Este es uno de ellos, este es un árbol de Borbón.
¿Estamos bien? Sí.
Sí, nosotros con la producción de café siempre mantenemos árboles. Los productos estacionarios necesitan sol durante su tiempo de desarrollo, ¿verdad? Siempre mantenemos equilibrada su sombra, porque eso sí necesita también nuestro café.
Los diferentes horarios porque los cambios climáticos.
Pues allá arriba, no, como te comentaba, no ha afectado mucho. Acá en esta área sí. Acá tienes que ayudarlo con, sí o sí, con el químico, que es el que le va a aportar humedad a la planta.
Some of the things you most associate with Guatemala are things like Mayan culture, coffee, chocolate, volcanoes, farming, and all these different things are connected. It's in the soil.
Pero esa tierra es más granzuda, más piedra que tierra, ¿verdad? Y las matas de café no sobreviven mucho.
Pretty much all over the world, soil is sacred. Soil contains all kinds of life we can't see, but that becomes the building blocks for the life we can see. And volcanic soil, that's especially complex. The presence of these volcanoes creates a unique soil composition and an elevation where it's not only good for the coffee plants to grow, but it also produces a unique taste, and baristas swear they can tell the difference. You know how you often hear hype around shade-grown coffee? Angel's showing us why that's a valuable thing.
Ya que acá podemos tener mucha.
On one side of the farm, not many trees. The coffee plants there are exploding with flowers. You might think lots of flowers means lots of productivity, and sometimes yes, that is the case. But here, it's more like a last-ditch effort for these plants to survive from exhaustion and overexposure to sun. On the other side, under the shade of trees, coffee grows at a healthier rate.
Pero hay que tenerlos de forma adecuada, no muy juntos, ya que lo que les indicaba que necesitamos espacio para que la planta se desarrolle, ¿verdad?
Everything in balance.
Ajá, podemos utilizar árboles de naranja, de jocote, de macadamia, de...
Coffee growing is a delicate process. There's an art to supporting these plants with trees, to balancing the soil composition, and climate change makes this even more of a moving target. But getting that right is the difference between desperate times and abundance. Of course, this is just the journey from soil to bean. After that, there's a whole roasting and brewing process, not to mention tasting. We went back to Angel's place for some of that, where he and his wife got us started on the grind.
Ahora le toca el turno de... Solo córrete un poquito para allá para que salga...
Over a couple cups of coffee, I got to know Angel on an even more personal level. Turns out, he's also a twin dad. But his story is a bit more tragic. His wife went into labor at 23 weeks of pregnancy. His son, unfortunately, did not survive. Angel needed to work in restaurants around town in order to pay for all the medical treatments that were necessary. His surviving daughter is doing well, but she does need physical therapy. The health of his coffee farm enables her to get that.
Yo tengo mi título, tengo el título de administración de empresas.
Claro.
Pero en Guatemala, si no tienes universidad, no tienes mayor oportunidad de empleo. A uno le abre puertas a expresarse, a ser más como arriesgado a hacer las cosas, ¿verdad? Gracias a Dios yo llevo 10 años de estar trabajando con la gente, exportando mi café a Estados Unidos, Canadá y parte de Europa. Y fue una oportunidad que me dio Dios de igual manera.
Before we left, I made sure to get some coffee for the road. This is about as direct trade as you can get. This is Angel's brand, with Angel's face With no middlemen, I bought it straight from Angel. Every time I have a cup of this coffee, makes me feel really good. So while on this trip, I've been enjoying some of the nicer things Guatemala has to offer, coffee and chocolates and whatnot, but it's important to acknowledge a big irony. Despite having some of the richest, most fertile soils in the world, it has a poverty rate of over 60%. I wish more people knew this, but do you know where the term Banana Republic comes from? It happened a bunch of times between the 40s and 80s roughly, when the US government participated in overthrowing governments in order to install ones in Central America that were more favorable for business interests. In the early 1950s, Jacobo Arbenz was president of Guatemala. He was democratically elected, he was really popular, and to combat inequality, he was launching a program to give land back to the peasants. This threatened the United Fruit Company, who controlled a lot of that land, so they contacted the CIA. The CIA director and Secretary of State, the Dulles brothers, then convinced President Eisenhower to authorize a coup. They installed this guy as president, and his mustache is a bit of a clue as to how things would go. Castillo gave United Fruit 1.5 million acres, placed harsh restrictions on indigenous communities, and terrorized his opposition. In 1996, peace accords were finally signed, but the United Fruit Company still lives on. You might recognize their current logo. I think it's important to include these parts of the story, as unpleasant as they might be. At the same time, it's important to remember exploitation is never the whole story. There's so much more to a place's identity than simply victimhood. Though Guatemala has had a tumultuous history, many people who've lived through it have still seen the country come a long way. We're gonna meet someone who's lived through it, and that's gonna take a return trip to San Miguel Escobar. So we're about to go on another outing I've been looking forward to. We're gonna meet another local family, and we're signed up to do a cooking class. I think we're gonna make the national dish of Guatemala, which is called pepián. And we're bringing Kai and Juniper along for this one. So let's do this. This is Guatemala's iconic national dish, pepián. And while we can order it all over town, we're gonna take it a step further. I think I'm gonna make it a point, whenever I travel, as often as I can, to try and take a cooking lesson from a local. It's not so much that I need to brush up on my cooking chops, although why not? But it's because food tells some of the best stories, and some of the best stories are told over food. Our cooking lesson turned out to be a bit more of a cooking demo, since we had our hands full with the babies, and she was just so much better at it. We did get to try our hand at tortillas, and these are not easy.
Oh, no.
¿Tu familia es de San Miguel Escobar? Sí. I don't know what it is about being a twin parent, but you metaphysically seem to attract all the other twin parents. Francesca herself raised a set of twins. Here's her daughter now. When her kids were born, San Miguel Escobar had no electricity. She would sleep with them in her bed and would have to tend to them multiple times overnight by candlelight. She explains how these were some of the most challenging moments in her life, and hey, I can relate, although she had it much worse. While San Miguel Escobar is still a humble place, it has come a long way, especially from the days pre-electricity. Now we're gonna make some mole, and guess how we're gonna make it? In this plug-in blender. Bueno, ¿cuáles son tus palabras sages de tener gemelos?
Mis consejos es de que hay que tener sobre todo mucha paciencia con los niños.
Sí.
Y sobre todo, ¿verdad? A veces uno necesita ayuda de los demás. Hay que pedir ayuda porque son dos niños, ¿verdad? Y necesitan mucho cuidado.
Food tells you stories about a place in a way that hardly anything else can. These stories run deep into the place's soil, into its history, and into the lives of its people.